urgent, something that relate to what's happening right now to your life, your study or your career, and how the practice could help you. Um, so, and I'd like to share that we have on the panel today Brother Phap Khoi, who's known as Brother PK. He's been with us for quite a while, and he's also been working with many young people. And he just came back from Plum Village in France. And next to Brother Phap Khoi is Brother Emptiness. He's also a wonderful brother who's been here for a while, and he had many experiences to share with you on different levels. And on my right is Sister Hai Eng. We invited her up here for her fresh presence. And she's also been, in the past, working with teenagers and young people in Plum Village. So we're very happy to have her up here. Perhaps you can ask her about questions about why she ordained or something like that, monastic life. And my name is Sister True Precept, and I also love to work with young people and children. So now we open the circle for questions. So don't be shy. When you ask your question, then we write on the board so the panelists can see, and it's easier for us. And we take about 4 or 5 questions at a time, or 6, we see. And then after that, we will answer them all at once. Thank you. Perhaps our brother Bellini, would you like to start the question so that others could feel less shy to ask questions?
A recurring question that I hear from my student is it's easy to practice here. Do you have any suggestions of how we can build or bring the practice back home?
Thank you. Would you have any suggestions on introducing the practice to somebody who would be completely new to it and perhaps maybe not so interested in it at first, how to incorporate the practice or to teach people who are completely unaware? Any suggestions? Louder? Oh.
There's a question with the gentleman standing at front, sitting at the back. Can pass the microphone. Oh, see.
Along with her question, I'm curious to know how we can introduce the practice more in the urban areas, specifically with African Americans, and more specifically African American males.
My question is, how do you practice forgiveness and compassion without sacrificing your self-respect? Thank you. How do you practice compassion and forgiveness if you're not going to sacrifice your self-respect and self-love? Thank you.
My question is, do you still practice when you feel grumpy, when you don't want to practice? And if so, how do you work with that feeling?
My question is about working with children. I have two daughters, ages 8 and 10, and especially with solving conflicts between them, how to use the practice. They're very competitive.
So, dear Sangha, I guess we start with that, and let us listen to one sound, the bell. Dear respected Thai, dear beloved community, I guess as the youngest, I've been welcome to take first choice. Thank you. I wanted to speak, although all the questions are very beautiful. I want to speak to how to practice when you don't feel like it, when you feel grumpy. What first came to mind was, at this point, that's actually the easiest time to practice because I've practiced enough to see that it's effective. So when I'm suffering, that's become the easiest time in a way to at least to remember to practice, not always to transform everything. So that I know it wasn't like that when I began. But that's what first came to mind, and I'm happy to see that I've been able to make that relationship with my practice. And for me, cultivating practice is like cultivating any language or any skill set or any muscle. It's repetition that makes it stronger. So things like retreats and a sangha and a regular practice at home, whether it is sitting or mindful eating or, inviting friends over for tea in silence, doing something regularly, which I think it took me about 5 years of going, I've only been ordained 2.5 or 3 years, but I started practicing in 2004 or so. So I think it was about 5 years that I had started going to retreats and tried to practice consistently when I came home. And I'd keep it up, whether it was sitting or mostly sitting and trying to go to Sangha if there was a local Sangha. There wasn't always one. And I'd keep it up for a few weeks and then I'd kind of fall back. And then I'd start again and I'd fall back. And then I'd go to another retreat and get really inspired and it would sort of stay more alive for a few months. And it took me about 5 years for it to be a really steady thing in my daily life. And I know other people who, when they decide to start practicing, they're very, I think, consistent and regular in their daily lives. And I'm more like creative, flexible, can adapt and roll with anything, but can't always keep something steady in my life. So I share that just to say, please don't expect that your practice when you leave home will look anything like here. Maybe that's also speaking to how to practice when you go home. And that's fine. The conditions are different, so of course our practice will look a little different and it maybe won't be as continual. But I see now that bit by bit, so I guess I'm answering 2 questions at once. By cultivating a home practice bit by bit, I've been able to see that coming back to breathing, connecting to my Sangha, just remembering that I don't have to believe my thoughts has become quite natural in the face of hardship and the grumpy days, so that I can actually honestly say that those are easier times to remember to practice. When things are going very, very well, it's actually easier to forget to practice because
everything's going well. It's more than grumpy, but when I've gone through big difficulties like cancer and like my mom's death, I didn't practice in the same way, but it was much easier to practice almost every moment, because the pain was so strong, and I knew that I had at least some bit of a remedy, not a total, not everything was transformed right away. And actually, so it's more than a grumpy day, but I'll tell you a story that I remember the day I was diagnosed with cancer about 7 or 8 years ago. I was very anemic. We didn't know why. I was in the hospital getting a blood transfusion, and that's when I found out the diagnosis of cancer. And I had been to Plum Village for 3 months that previous winter, so my practice was actually fairly strong by that point. And I had the drip cart with the blood bag, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I was kind of shocked. I was only 29, but I said, I'm going to do walking meditation. So I was walking through the hospital, and I was like planting lotus flowers with every step and kissing the earth, and it was kind of surreal and bizarre. But because I had cultivated a practice, when the difficulty hit, the bigger difficulty than I had ever faced before, I didn't have to try so much. It's like these, if you want to talk neural pathways, it had already been established a little bit. And it's not to say that the whole time was easy and peaceful, but I realized that everything I had invested into my practice was the best thing I could have done with my life. I hadn't spent as much time developing my career as other people might have, or saving up for a mortgage. But I had put a lot into my spiritual life, and I realized that was the best thing I could have done. So the little bit by bit, practicing what is joyful, it all accumulates. Reading books, having good friends that you can share these ideas with. So we talk a lot about a sangha, people that you can practice with that will keep nourishing this. And once that becomes a little bit stronger, then when there's the grumpy days, it's the first thing I think to, oh, thank goodness. Okay, go for a walk. Look at the trees, listen to the birds, breathe. It's not so hard, but that's, I don't know if this is clear, but the very first impetus to practice has to be something within us that we enjoy. If I didn't like the practice, I wouldn't have invested into it. So please take what you enjoy, what inspires you, where you feel nourishment. Also, sometimes it's seeing a friend, go, wow, that person seems to have a quality that really inspires me, or someone like Thich Nhat Hanh. When I went to my first retreat, I saw how he walked across the room, and that was more powerful than any Dharma talk. So something inspired me to practice, even when remembering was difficult, but bit by bit, it becomes sort of natural to remember, even if my skill is not so great. At least remembering, to try, to begin again. Every time, like we say in sitting meditation, every time the mind wanders, we just bring it back gently. That's what I do with my whole life practice. Every time that I see that I'm not practicing so much, that I'm not being so mindful, that I'm believing my thoughts, that I'm angry, that irritation, frustration, despair has arisen. Every time I notice that and come back to the practice, it's just strengthening it. But also because something beautiful was touched inside, so that inspired me. And bit by bit, it can become more natural. And when it's not natural, then having people around you is the easiest way that I've found to come back to practice, because it's a little too much to expect ourselves in our most difficult place to do something that's unnatural. or like gathas and other things posted around the house. I found that really helpful so that I didn't have to remember on my own. I would have my list of like 10 happy things that can help me without any effort on the fridge. So I don't have to remember it when I'm grumpy. But the gathas, the little poems about turning on the water, all these things, very helpful. So that's what I want to share. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope my elders, if I have, can share and continue on these topics. Thank you.
So, dear Thầy, dear friends, I'd like to try to answer to question number 2, how to introduce the practice to someone who doesn't know about anything yet or does not seem very interested. I would say there were 2 categories we can put aside. The one who doesn't know or new to the practice, it seems easier, but the one who are not interested, you can perceive that more difficult, so that they're separate. I think the best is if we practice for ourselves first. We practice so we can test the joy of the practice and be happy and smile and so on, and be surrounded by a good friend who water the good seeds. And also we contribute by watering a good seed in us every day. So first of all, you practice for your own benefit first. And slowly you can spread around the people around you. And that reinforces that other people can share the practice with you, remind you to practice. And it's just like a group, when the student come this weekend, so we become friends and we kind of know the practice will help. And then through that you can introduce it to somebody new, say some student who hasn't been to Blue Cliff Monastery, something like that. And I think usually for the monastic we work a lot when you have another friend, and just the interaction between the 2 persons who know the practice make it the person to feel that there's certain relationship that are being healthy, and how you choose to water the good seeds. So it's usually that's the best way to introduce the new people. Of course, when you are alone or something, you're forced to share the practice with somebody new, then your freshness, your happiness is very important. And of course, along with that, your mindfulness. So it's a habit forming. You have to keep practicing a little bit every day, so that way it become automatic. You're always being mindful when you close the door, push a chair back to the table after you sit, wash your dishes. Because when you share the practice with somebody new, the person observe you and see how you do everything, how you talk, whether you are emotional. Say if you are not stable emotionally, and you try to share the practice, even though you say the right word, but the tone and the thing are more unstable emotionally, and the person doesn't receive well. And I think also along with that is for people who don't know the practice at all, the best is to practice in a formless practice. And when you practice internally, you know you're practicing, but externally, you don't try to overstate your case. Like here I'm paying attention. I'm not talking to you. I'm eating, and there is a certain air of thou art holy kind of thing, and so people who are not used, they can look and say, what's going on with her here, She thinks she's so holy or something like that, So one-on-one is very important to connect, to have eye contact, to be down to earth, to be there for the other person. And then having to do with the person who are more difficult or not ready yet, is just to be patient and not to try to convert the person. You would try so hard, you say, oh, so-and-so suffers so much, I want to help her, I want to cure her, I want to practice. If she's not ready, she's not ready. So first of all is, if you practice, you benefit yourself, that's already a plus. And then when you benefit yourself, you'll be joyful, you're happy, other people are forced to benefit from that. That's natural when you interact with other people. So you do effortlessly, you don't have to try so hard to convert people, but you also influence. And then if people are really not ready, then you need to be patient. Okay, you could just say, that person's not ready yet. Maybe someday he or she will be ready. So let's say you try to go to Iraq or Syria, you try to convert people, and people don't want to be ready. So it's hard, So I hope I answered this question for the moment.
Dear Sangha, I'd like to share about the question number 6 for the children, how to use the practice to resolve conflicts, especially when they're competitive. I have a chance to work with children in different children programs that we have, and we tend to bump into these problems very frequently. And sometimes we will tell a story for them to see that they can also share and be compassionate to each other instead of just competing or getting into problem with each other. And sometimes we play games too. There's this game we play, it's called the Web of Life. And we get a big yarn, barbed yarn, and we will throw to one child and call out their name. And then that child catch the barbed yarn and then hold one of the end and then throw it to the next friend. So for them to see that they are connecting to each other in a way, they're not separated. And sometimes we will paint and draw and where the apples are coming from, and the children would think of many things like the sunshine, the earth, the water, and how things are connected, the farmers, the people who get to eat these fruit or vegetables, where they're coming from. In a way, that helps the children to not see themselves as individual entities. It's an easier way to explain non-self than explaining, all this theory about non-self. And I think to also to see that when they can yield, when they can open their heart, it's actually make them a greater person. There's a question about compassion and forgiveness. How do we do it without sacrificing our self-respect? People might think that to be compassionate and to forgive is to make you kind of harm yourself, pride or whatever. But it's actually the opposite. When you start to learn the practice, it's about making our heart bigger and making our mind bigger, and we can embrace more things, more people. The bodhisattva of compassion, sometimes we depict her as the beautiful, vast white clouds, because it's big enough to embrace the whole cosmos and to allow the nectar of compassion to drop on all the trees and beings. So actually, when we can be compassionate, then our heart can grow bigger, and it makes us feel happier. But again, it's like when it's the right time to do it. Sometimes you have compassion in your heart, but it's not the right time to share with the other person. So we have to wait for the right moment to what we call begin anew, because it's not so easy. But when you have enough compassion in your heart, then forgiveness also will be born, and it's easier to embrace and to forgive and to love the other person. So that's how I share with the children, and I hope that will help somehow. And I'm sure you have many creative ways to help the children to resolve conflicts. Thank you.
Good morning, dear teacher, dear Sangha. I can address question number 3, how to introduce the practice to urban areas, especially to African American people, male. I think the question was particularly to African American males. There are many Sanghas in various cities in the U.S. and so you can search online for them. I think there are many in all different cities, and also there are sanghas who are for people of color too. I have known a few. There is one in New York City, another one in Baltimore, and also one in Los Angeles, among others. And the practice can be continued if you're able to participate in the local sanghas, to get support, and also to offer support, to contribute. And you yourself would be the best role model to share the practice with others, if you're able to benefit from the practice, to be fresh, to be calm, be present, happy. Then you don't really need to do much to try to show people or to try to talk to them or try to convince them. But by the way that you live, by the way you behave, then people will come and inquire. If they're not interested, then there's no point for us to come and try to get them to practice. But we have to do that by ourselves. And if we have freshness, stability, joy, and naturally people will be curious, and that's the best opportunity for us to share the teaching and our practice with them. Good luck. Thank you.
So, dear Thai, dear friends, I think some of the questions have been answered because they're kind of similar, but I also want to share about sometime when you feel grumpy or you don't feel like practicing and how you deal with that. I think when you feel grumpy, probably the best is to go back to self and to reflect and to calm ourselves. Different people do differently. Like I play a little bit guitar, so usually I choose a couple soothing song, guitar, classical guitar, because I'm not sure you feel when you play guitar there's a vibration on the box of the guitar, and it resonates within your body. So it's very soothing because it's, the sound penetrates into your body when you play guitar. So for me, it's like a meditation, and you can choose some word of the song that are soothing, so it kind of help us to heal or to feel better. And the other one is to not to wait until you feel grumpy or sad or difficult to practice. So a little bit every day you have to invest in the practice of mindfulness, whether it's washing the dishes or getting in and out of the car, things like that. So you have a little bit extra investment of mindfulness energy in you. So when you feel grumpy, you don't feel like it is still inherent into your own routine every day. I think there was a question about how to practice compassion and forgiveness and not sacrificing your self-respect. This is a very difficult question. I think we need to have enough joy and happiness every day. Because probably what the question mentioned having to do something in the past happened, and there was some hurt, and there was some wound, and now we try to deal with that. So the best is to practice being at the present moment first, and then being surrounded by a good friend, people who know the practice, and help to water the good seeds of joy and happiness in daily life first. And you feel inspired by being with kind people first. So you have enough energy to within yourself, and then once in a while you can go back and look into the past, and but you need to be strong enough to deal with that. I equate a little bit like you have like a bookcase, and you have several books, and usually you have a bookmark in your book, and so you say, okay, I have some time now, let's meditate. So it's like pulling out a book from your bookcase, and you go to the bookmark where you last read that chapter, whatever, and it will feel like the subject you try to meditate is heavy, is emotionally charged or sad. Then you can choose, you can say, okay, I'm just going to read one chapter out of that book, and then I put the bookmark again, and I put the book back in the shelf. So use a little bit those every day, not to try to cover everything right away. Because you probably know more how much the impact, how much emotional impact, how much thing, how to deal with it. And the other one have to do with sometimes we call co-counseling. Have a good friends and share with her or with him about your difficulty, your suffering. Every time you expose to your best friend or something like that about something in the past that have been difficult for you, the other person, just by deep listening, already share and help to heal the wound. And then when you get to the point when you can go to several chapters of the book, by that I mean that deep looking into the hurt or the wound that you have, then you can learn how to look deeply into the person who may be the person who caused you the suffering. Actually, the person is also the victim of his or her own suffering. So by then you can learn that that person doesn't really want to hurt you, but because maybe there's something in his past or her past that she been raised in that way, and she been the victim of her suffering or his suffering. So he caused suffering to you. So that is a contemplation of a no self in yourself, and no self in the other person as well. So that from that point of view, you're not losing any self-respect by doing that. And by nourish yourself with your good friend and sharing your suffering with your close friend, that is also a way of having restore your respect in yourself. So it's easier to forgive and to have compassion to the person that may hurt you in the past. I hope I'm covered. Maybe somebody can add some more. Thank you.
So, dear Thai, dear Sangha, thank you for all the questions that were asked and also the answers. We will have Dharma sharing shortly, so we'd like to just maybe end here. And if you're not satisfied or if you have other questions, then please, you can ask also during Dharma sharing. Thank you for being present and support us. Thank you.